Analysts at FSDH Asset Management say strong investor sentiment, ongoing dividend announcements, and robust first quarter 2025 earnings reports will sustain the positive momentum in the Nigerian equities markets amid profit taking in some top stocks. Taofik Oyeniyi, Chief Investment Officer at FSDH Asset Management, joins me for a quick for market update and outlook for the week. Taofik, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So we're continuing to see Q1 earnings come in, and usually all eyes are usually on the banking stocks. But I wanted us, just look at them overall. But first of all, what have been the key takeaways for you? Let's start with that. What have been the key takeaways for you?
Generally speaking, the equity market today would actually be. Sentiments will be mixed in the equity market, going by the global, trade, challenges we're having. Prior to the commencement of the trade war, the expectation was that the global economy will grow by 3.3% globally, and indeed the Nigerian economy too was projected by World Bank to grow at 3.3%. But right now, after the commencement of the trade war, there's been a downgrade for the global economic growth and also the Nigerian, growth prospect. So equity market is actually very dependent on global, economy, the performance of the global economy and indeed the local economy. So while you see generally, the economy going down, you most likely see equity going down as well. So equity sentiment is, going forward into the year will be driven more by micro sentiments rather than fundamentals of the respective companies.
Right. Now, for domestic, let's keep it to domestic issues now. Where would the market find support? If you look at our key macro indicators, where the Naira is, foreign exchange market, inflation, projections for GDP growth, government spending, etc., where's the market finding some kind of comfort? Okay,
fine. Like I said earlier, you can't completely isolate the local economy from the global economy. There's always a transmission. If the transmission is such that we expect global economy to actually do poorly, and there's been a downgrade in the projection for the local economy, equity markets typically is likely to see some a little bit of a nosedive. But however, depending on the sector you position, there are some sectors, like you did mention, the banking sector will be one of the good sectors to actually position, going forward, because the global risk, associated with trade tariff could actually drive interest rate up, and it can affect our the local currency, because just like you reported now, Brent crude oil actually has gone down. So that's where the fiscal balance will be affected in the country, and once the fiscal balance is affected, the ability of the government, of the CBN, to actually defend the Naira will be affected. So that's likely going to cause some level of depreciation again in the Naira. And if that happens, there are some institutions that are positively positioned. Banks, for example, even though it appears, a little bit of an irony, the bank stocks are performance typically should be correlated to the economy, in which case when you see the economy going down, there should be some level of moderation in the performance of banks. But however, banks typically are positioned through interest rates and FX revaluation. Like we saw the recent challenges we have in the devaluation we had in 2023-24. Banks actually were positioned to actually do very well because of the net asset positioning they have. So when Naira gets devalued, they revalue currencies in their books and they make gains. Also, interest rates too. The structure of the positioning, when banks actually reprice their assets, their loans faster than liabilities. So when interest rates go up and their assets are repriced, then there's that gives them some level of impetus to actually have a better performance in their. So they remain very good for exposure in the equity market.
Right. So today's Monday, first trading day for the week. What is your outlook for the week? Where do you see investors bargain hunting? We've seen, of course, some dividend announcements, but where would investors be looking for value? There's some stocks that are also taking a haircut. So. Also adding that into the mix. So
we saw quite a number. We've seen, apart from the year-end results, year-end 2024 that came out, a lot of banks declared dividend. Interesting dividends, and investors are actually happy. So they are going to their bank account and pulling out money. So that momentum, and recently too, we started seeing the Q1 2025 results, and despite the headwind, we've been seeing quite a number of good performance. So Of note is Presco that actually came out with a very sterling performance. So that's one of the stocks that we think at FSDH Asset Management will be a very good, create a lot of value for money for investors. Also, the banking stocks that we spoke to earlier, quite a number of them will be very good for investment at this moment.
Do you think the investors are concerned about, I mean, oil and gas stocks? Because looking at the oil and gas index is down over 3%. Of course, with all that's going on, I mean, we saw good numbers from the likes of Seplat, Aradel, but it would appear that there's some concerns in terms of profitability going forward with where oil prices are and all of that. Do you share that sentiment too?
Sure, I do. What we saw in Q1, they had a good results, but that's historical, don't forget. And we're looking at, looking forward. So looking forward based on the sentiments, caused by the trade war, we're likely to see reduction in performance, because critical thing is that what is the price? That is a major source of their revenue. And if that's actually challenged, that could have actually been negative for them. However, for those who are able to, depending on where you play, because that's the upstream, it could be the downstream as well. So quite a number of, with the deregulation in the downstream market, a lot of downstream companies, we have corn oil, we have Total Energy, Total. So, there could be value in such downstream oil and gas sector. But for the upstream companies, we feel they will be a little bit challenged, except there's a reversal in the trade war. I'm
not sure that's going to happen anytime soon, but we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Taofik, for talking to us today. That was Taofik Oyeniyi, Chief Investment Officer at FSDH Asset Management, taking us through the outlook for Nigeria's stock market this week.